Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Okay, it is 6:31. Let's go ahead and call the November 11th Resource Conservation Commission meeting to order. First item on the order is appointment of timekeeper. Andy was supposed to be it, but does anyone want to volunteer? Andy, do you mind me?
Until Andy joins, I only have one page of the agenda printed, so I'll be handicapped after that.
Okay. All right, so item 2 on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes from October 14th, 2024 RCC meeting. Is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. This is Kim.
Kim seconds. Open for discussion. Okay, no discussion on the meeting minutes? If no discussion, all those in favor of approving the October 14th meeting minutes, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
I'm abstaining. I was in every meeting.
All approve with one abstaining. Motion move forward. Item 3 on the agenda, public appearance for non-agenda items. Looks like there's no one here from the public. So we can move on to agenda item 4, which is new business. 4A, police facility sustainability upgrades discussion from FGM Architects. Ben, you'll turn that over to you to introduce them.
Yeah, sure. We've got Brian Mead and Paul Woodard here joining us, and they're going to kind of go through this memo that they put together and give us a chance to talk through some of the sustainability upgrades that we're looking at right now for the police facility. So with that, I'll turn it over to the FGM team and Paul here. If you guys have anything you'd like to share, feel free to share the screen. Otherwise, yeah, let me know if you want me to share it.
Okay. Yes, great. Thank you all. Yes, on behalf of the design team, it's great to be back in front of you. 10 months later, it was January 8th, I think was the last RCC discussion. So I do have a bunch of files that I'm going to share here to help with our discussion. And let me start by saying I know the main goal, and Paul, feel free to back me up or revise it, but the main feedback we're looking for today, obviously we've been working hard at updating the memo and numbers, but if you recall, and I'll share here the previous, when we last met in January 8th, if you look at the bottom here, we had a whole different target where we were trying to budget, come up with $2.5 million target. That could be for any expenses related to the sustainable design components. And if you remember, we did a live exercise last time where we created a column that we were updating numbers that you thought were most viable and were highest priority. And just a quick recap from January is when the target was 2.5 million, you all were definitely prioritizing things like the geothermal system and its premium. You were prioritizing exterior envelope to increase energy performance, so those were being prioritized in the green. You were also prioritizing EV charging stations, so there was some interesting discussions about thinking about the future of both the EV vehicles within the community and charging stations. So in a really big nutshell, those were some of the highlights from last January when we were targeting 2.5 million. Today, 10 months later, we have a different target in mind and directive. So in the current project, even though the project has gotten smaller, we're trying to see if we can come up with 5 million was set as the maximum for any building related enhancements that could be associated with sustainable design improvements. And so we have been working hard at that, and as the numbers have kept rolling in even today, we're still we're at around 3.8 million in ideas and enhancements that we have identified that could be connected with sustainability. So if we had more, I mean, the goal though is to go through this whole list that we have in the column, and for you all to I can do a high-level summary just to see, make sure it's all pretty clear. And then I definitely want to open it up for you all to ask questions and see if there's any of the items that come up to 3.8, even though we're under the 5 million target, are there any of these items we've identified that for whatever reason you all think are maybe not worth pursuing? And I'll give one example, that Paul and others in our team have mentioned in the past. And if I go up here to the items that are highlighted in this light beige color under permeable pavers, even though the value of those enhancements to kind of help, instead of collecting all this storm water and putting it directly into catch basins and then out the system, permeable pavers obviously slow down the filtration of water, going through the whole system. So sometimes there's, benefits to that, but obviously there's cost and maintenance in the pavers themselves. And so those were a couple items related to permeable pavers that even though they do still come in under the 5 million, they've been sort of questioned and put at a very low priority, thinking that, there still might be some maintenance issues that the city may not want to deal with, down the line. And so that's an example in this meeting where in the discussion in the next 30 to 40 minutes, if you see any of these items that we have put in column G with data up to 3.8, if you think, no, that we really don't want to pursue that, then we can remove those, hide those. And then at the end of the meeting with your guidance, we would have maybe a revised bundle list that we could then go move forward more confidently into the design development phase and say, okay, yes, these are the items that we are going to move forward with in the next phase of design. So with that as the main, yes.
Well, I go ahead. I have a question. I'll wait till you're done.
Well, you can ask, because the only other quick update I was going to do was I was just going to slowly go through the main black headers. You may have all reviewed it already and have a kind of a sense of what the main categories are that we've estimated. So I can totally pause and start to answer questions if that would be more beneficial.
Okay. I was curious on the permeable pavers, how much stormwater would be captured by those? Is the cost benefit of that?
I don't have an exact number. I mean, our civil engineers could look at that. And again, I'll just show as a graphic because I have all these different files open.
It's also variable over time too. So initially when the permeable pavers go in, there's quite a bit that gets absorbed. But then over time it gets less, and particularly more so if they're not maintained properly. But we can come up with more exact numbers, but go ahead, Brian.
Right. Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, and we could definitely get this number, is when you look at pervious versus impervious, you can obviously add up the percentage of that kind of surface on your overall site. So obviously, the impervious right now, if it was just concrete and asphalt, is going to be all of the dark, all of the gray that's shaded in. And then we would take the roof outline, which is about 29,000 square feet of roof or building footprint, and we would add those together and say, okay, of your total acreage of property, this percentage is impervious. And if you if you were to swap out that percentage of the concrete or asphalt to impervious, we could get that percentage, maybe improvement of water infiltration. So again, I don't have that at my fingertips right now, but we could get that. Maybe, if I may, just for a second on that same category, this sketch, a very crude sketch, but obviously it wasn't included in your document. This is one of the many design in progress studies where.
Hey, Brian, sorry to interrupt, but right now we're still just seeing the spreadsheet section 3.6.2. So I think we need a different screen share.
Thank you. I should just share my whole screen here. Sorry about that. Yes, so just to back up for a second. So visually, what I was saying was, with this site plan, this is a marked up site plan that shows the asphalt, all the drive impervious for concrete or asphalt. It shows the building footprint, which is about 29,000. And it started to show these red and green circles where you could look at rain gardens and bioswales. And those are another sort of BMP, best practice for stormwater management that could be evaluated by you all and determined if that was also another option to consider, either in addition to or besides the permeable pavers. And I think in the latest program, the latest, just pop this one open. The latest PDF that was sent out this afternoon, there were a couple image examples that were included in the section on rain gardens, and those were quite small. So I just thought, for those of you in the room and even on Zoom, I would just share a couple examples too. So besides permeable pavers, whatever is remaining between perth and prairie grasses, instead of that just working its way through the landscape or onto the pavement, there is a whole series of rain gardens and bioswales that are being done on a lot of properties to really make more of a visual feature in the landscape and sort of celebrate that. So, obviously in a heavy rain event, you would actually see some of that water, moving its way through the system before it disappears. So that was more of maybe an aesthetic way for an educational tool or a way to celebrate a little bit of this BMP for stormwater. That category was also identified in our latest report. And in latest, so instead of 3.6.2, which were the permeable pavers, if you go to the next one, 3.6.3, the idea of rain gardens and bioswales have been very early identified as potentially up to 4 locations on the site where you could do different degrees of this. And again, these are rough order of magnitude budget items. But if you all were interested in any or all of those as one of the options, you're starting to see a value. You could be anywhere from 20 for one of them. And if you did want to consider all of them together, you could be upwards of $140,000, $150,000 in terms of a premium cost to do rain garden and bioswale features. So in that category of stormwater, those are the 2 that we have focused on, as well as one little green roof. So if we kind of jump to that category of stormwater design, that's the other one that I wanted to point out. In our last meeting in January, you all, I think, were pretty clear about really focusing on solar and renewable energies and PVs for as many roof areas as possible. And so even with today's design, we are still following that strategy and saying that most of the roof would be dedicated towards either phase one or future PV ready areas. But we did take one area, which again, I'll show you on a site roof plan, that we said the green roof that would be on the lower level by the north terrace would be about a 1,400 square foot demonstration green roof garden. And the main reason we're suggesting that, if I share the roof plan here for a second, is let me go to my share screen, and then here. So here you're seeing color coding of the different roofs of our latest design. From highest elevation to lowest elevation, the lobby roof would be the highest elevation, which is about 1.5 stories. And then the first floor beige and the first floor blue are your first floor roofs. And then at the far north end, there's a small part of the basement garage that actually kind of pokes out from the first floor level. And that little 2,000 square foot roof is where we're proposing a small, like amenity staff roof deck. If they wanted, most of the staff do work on the main level, which is above the staff parking lot to the west. So if they wanted a quick dose of fresh air, there's planning for a small roof deck. And so when staff do go out to that roof deck, instead of looking out over just a white membrane roof, we are proposing that the remainder of that roof, which is about 1,400 square feet, that may be a one of the more economical, what they call a modular vegetation roof, which is these 3 foot by 3 foot trays that are low weight and easy to maintain. And again, they do give you some greenery. They do soak up a little bit of the water. And it's also kind of an educational demonstration tool that could be visible from anyone, looking out the windows here on that first floor or experiencing the roof deck.
The other thing to point out on that, Brian, is that it's pretty well shaded for solar panels too, but not lend itself well to solar because of the shading. Yes, thank you, Paul. That's a really good point too. It is going to be lower, so yeah, the shadow may not make for a good candidate for that. So with that summary, so those are the stormwater design features in category 3.6 that we are at the moment promoting. So one of those green roofs would be around a $60,000 premium. Permeable pavers, whether you accept or don't accept, that's around 210 if you did both. We talked about rain gardens and bioswales, which is 3.6.3. And then the only other one we had talked about in our memo ever since last year was another category of stormwater design is potential rainwater harvesting, which is either underground cisterns or rain barrels. And we definitely, even the last time as a group, we did not prioritize or recommend that, and that's our current stance as well. That it's not really worth the bang for the buck. And we've even had a project in the Chicago suburb that we recently even went all the way through design development with the cisterns. And we had some major roadblocks and issues that, at least for that project and community, made it even more difficult to pursue. So anyway, so just maybe pausing for a second with stormwater design. Didn't know if there was any additional either discussion or questions or comments about those three categories that we just talked about.
Okay, go ahead, Diane.
I guess I have a couple general questions. Column G, if you go down to the total, that's what we originally, you're saying that's what we originally discussed this committee? Or are you saying correct, you took what we discussed and you massaged it and added a couple of things?
We definitely added because last time we talked as a committee, I believe it was back in January, and $2.5 million was the target. And we took everything from that exercise that you did desire. So we took really focusing on exterior envelope improvements, focusing on solar, focusing on geothermal, focusing on EV chargers. So we did all of that, which had we been at just the $2.5 million limit for that sustainable enhancement bundle, we would have been over, and then we would have had a harder decision saying, oh gosh, how do we prioritize and cut out, 1.2 million of that. But in the course of this, revised design, even though the budget is at 35 million, there has been an increased allowance that said, okay, 5 million is now going to be the target maximum that anything related to sustainability could add up to. So with that 5.5, or with the 5 million now, we're at 3.7. And so besides geothermal, besides solar, besides green roofs and envelope and EVs, some of the other things that we've added, which you may have noted, but I'll just highlight towards the beginning here, is some actual bricks and mortar architectural space that's tangentially related. So for example, geothermal and all of the equipment related to it, one of the things we talked about at the end of the first round was, especially in the Wisconsin climate, instead of having all of this that sometimes on more economical buildings are all rooftop and exterior exposed. So sometimes in, winter, snowy climates, if you're putting rooftop units and all this other equipment just on a bare roof, it's the lifespan of that equipment is not going to be as long, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to maintain, and the footprint of any of that equipment is going to take away from the footprint where you could do more solar panels. So because of those couple reasons, we did identify in these last 3 rows under 3.3, we said, hey, there's actually 3 indoor parts of the building that are now housing equipment that could have gone on the roof, but we've actually decided to put it in the building to extend the lifespan and create more room for rooftop PVs. So because it's connected to this whole sustainable enhancement goal, we've quantified and said that that's about 18 to 1900 square feet of indoor space that, the bricks and mortar value of that is around $359 a square feet. So that adds up. You can see those 3 would add up to about, 5, 6, almost $700,000 for that. So those are some of the things that we've added.
Brian, are you saying that that's the opportunity cost, or are you saying that's the additional cost to move them inside?
That's the additional cost.
Okay.
Yes. That's because had those not been moved inside, this building could have been potentially 1,800 square feet smaller in size. And so that 1,800 square feet in building size would have, because those are not finished out, those rooms don't have nice, expensive finishes. It's just usually exposed concrete, exposed deck. So that's why the unit cost of that 1,800 square feet is, only $359, where the whole building, when you have expensive, technology and finishes and security, that gets up more $500, $600, $700 a square feet when you average it.
Okay, thanks.
So again, just summary. I hope that big picture answers your question.
No, I thought you were going to.
You said.
I thought you were going to continue on. We didn't get a copy of the January 8th document, so I don't have anything to go back to look at to compare what you have now to what we had then. But are you saying we have everything that we asked for then, and then you've added more because the budget increased, and now you still have dollars that you want to know how to spend them?
Correct.
Well,
yes.
We don't have to spend them, Diane, either. I mean, that's the not to exceed amount. So
okay.
We're not going to just do things. That makes sense to do.
So you've
already.
one
other thing on cover.
So you've already maxed the solar arrays?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me show you that, and I'll be happy to flip back and forth. And so yes, I apologize. I didn't realize you all didn't have a copy from January 8th, but I'll show you. So January 8th, we were targeting. We were seeing, hey, can we get somewhere in the 10 to 12% electricity offset for solar? And the 2.5 million to work, we had kind of tweaked the numbers a little bit and said, okay, maybe that would be a delta of $595,000. So today, if I go to that section of our chart with solar, that is And of course, I'm going to add all of the components, which include a little bit more. Let me highlight this. So those 6 items, if you took all of them, went from the 595, which we had in January, and we're proposing up to almost 1,903,000 in EV related components. And let me walk you all through that as well. Again, we had so many in progress diagrams that we didn't want to include all of them in the memo because they were working and still are working effort. I wanted to, while you're looking at your chart, let me use this to demonstrate in the memo that you probably all have in front of you. In the section for PVs, we identified 4 potential locations. Location option 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll use the color-coded kind of draft PV locations to kind of identify the 4. So location option 1, which is red, is just a really beginning draft array, and all of these have to have 10-foot for OSHA requirements. You have to stay 10 feet away from your parapet. Otherwise, you would need railings all the way around the roof. So that's why they all stay about 10 feet away. Option 1, which in our draft to you all, we said, yes, accept that. That would give you a 75 kilowatt array, which is filling up as much of that south wing of the roof as possible. Option location 2 would give you a 65 kilowatt array. Again, that's filling up as much as we can of the north wing of the roof, which is above detectives, it's above police administration and training. That's the location number 2. Location number 3 is in blue, and that's saying, okay, now we have a couple other smaller roofs. We have the celly garage, and then we have the high roof of the lobby that pops up. You also tried to put some arrays on those 2 roofs, again, not that it's a lot, it would give you, maybe a 13 kilowatt array. Again, in our chart, we've identified all 3 of those locations and have shown you the value for those. Then what we did is we added a location number 4, and that one we don't have a plan for yet. We said, okay, you just took locations 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is going to add up maybe 11% electricity offset. So we're already in that 10 to 12.5. If you wanted to go a little bit further, at least another 1 to 2% electrical offset, it's like we do this on a lot of projects. How do you create more surface area if you don't have it on the roof? Well, you could start to think about carport structures over parking, which you see it a lot in Arizona, Florida, other parts of the country. So we could explore different sizes. For today's memo, we wanted to show you one option, and that's location 4, which is saying if we did one carport in one part of the parking lot, which was, say, 25 feet deep by 70 feet long, that would give you another 1,740 square foot of surface area that you could do more PVs on top of that carport. And so PVs, of the array of that location 4 is going to be about $29,000. And then obviously the carport structure itself is not free. So that's about $180 a square foot for that carport structure. So, the carport structure itself obviously would cost you, $300 plus minus dollars. So, obviously that is a certain chunk of change just to get another 1 or 2% offset, electrical offset, plus the arrays.
Ryan,
But we wanted to show another location in case.
Didn't you tell us that the parking was behind the building? So it was on the shady side? Didn't you tell us when we discussed this in January that the parking was primarily behind the building so it wouldn't get a lot of sun?
Which parking are you talking about? Is this on like the west and the north and the west side of the building? Or we don't actually have a diagram in our packet today.
Okay, so there's a couple locations that we're looking at, and again, depending on the time of day, the 2 locations we're looking at are more to the south and west. So depending on the time of year and the degree of the sun, The one I highlighted, which was 25 by 70, is this one that is just near the Sally Port. So in the morning, this is about, this corner of the building is probably about 16 feet higher than what the surface of this would be, this potential carport array. So as the sun, moves around to the south and then southwest, and again, there would be shading studies to see where's the optimal location if you wanted to explore one carport, where on the, or I won't even say carport, but if you wanted to look at an elevated structure that could support more surface area, where is the place on site that would have the most, unobstructed solar rays look at? And so I guess the discussion is not so much about a carport. You want to try to get a more than 11% offset for the building.
What is to the west?
The difference in this building is 1 story now too.
Oh, the building's only 1 story?
Above grade.
Above, yes. From the southeast, it's perceived as a 1-story building. And from the north and west, it's perceived as a 2-story building because you're going to go down a hill. Either way you come into the site for police, you're going down a 15 to 16 foot hill where you get to the staff parking lot, which will basically, it's like a walkout basement. It'll reveal north and the west elevations as a 2-story, as opposed to 1 story on the east and the south. So all of that's to say, if there was a surface far enough to the west that was out of the morning shadows of this 1-story above grade structure, and there are probably some parts of the site towards the west or southwest that could accommodate panels that would have a pretty good daily percentage of unobstructed solar. And again, the whole reason we even that maybe we're talking about a very insignificant 1% or 2% energy offset. That's why location 4 was shown as a potential structure cost and a potential another small array cost. So those are those 2 items, and then the last row of 3.4 for renewables was cost of the rooftop stair to serve and maintain the PV panel. So a lot of roofs that don't have PVs, we will do a minimal roof hatch with a roof ladder. Not very safe. I mean, it is safe enough, but it's not very accessible, especially in bad weather. And so what this design is now proposing is that on the northwest corner of the project, which is right here, you would have a staircase that would actually go up 1 more flight of stairs all the way up to the 2nd floor. So there would be, instead of just a roof hatch you have to climb up, there's actually a man door that once you get up to the top of the stair, you go through a door and you would be on the roof, and it's better to maintain and serve the PV panel. So because that was a betterment or enhancement, we thought that the cost of that extra flight of stairs seemed to be appropriate to add to add to that whole category of renewable energy enhancements or betterment.
Paul, is that how we access the solar arrays that we have now? Through an indoor staircase?
No, that's I think that's a problem. Like on City Hall roof, it's just an access hatch. This is a lot better way to access these. I'm not sure how I don't recall in the library how that roof access is. It's been a few years.
I think library is also a ladder through an access hatch. I don't know if we have any stairwells.
Yeah, the stairwell is a lot better way to maintain these PVs. I mean, because
possibly the West Fire Station.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot better way to maintain these.
Hey Brian.
Yes.
Can I ask you what your estimated total electricity use for this building is? I'm surprised by the offset being so low with this size of system. I'm looking at our city hall is double the square footage. It uses about 750,000 kilowatt hours a year. And a solar system, a fourth this size, is about 40%, 15 or 20% offset.
But remember, Phil, this building's used 24/7, 365.
I know. I'm curious what the
City
total usage estimate is, and if there's more that can be done to reduce that load.
Sure. Yes, so we did document that. Let me just scroll to that section here. Okay, so let me make sure I'm sharing with everyone. If I go back to our chart. So in the first paragraph of section 4.1.1, now that the building is 50,706, and yes, it is a little bit different, right, than a library or city hall that might be more, 8 to 5 operations. But the estimate from our electrical engineer is, 1,932,000 kilowatt hours per year. And so with that, their assumption is that it's basically approximately 15 kilowatt hours per year of generation per square foot of PV panels. So I don't have it in the report, but there is a PV panel spec that our engineers had preliminarily chosen for this project and said, okay, this PV panel will provide, rough order magnitude around 15 kilowatt hours per year per square foot. So that's where we basically did the math and said, okay, if this 24/7 facility is going to use, 1.9 million kilowatt hours per year, divided by the 15, the site would require 128,000 surface area square feet to achieve 100% electrical offset. So once we did that math, then it was like, okay, let's just then do the numbers and say, with a 15 kilowatt hour per square foot, achievement, how can we achieve these different categories of electrical offset, 2.5 to 5. We didn't put in, 10 to 5, but you can imagine every bracket could be explored, 5% to 10%, 10 to 12.5. So that's, again, unless there's some error in any of these kilowatt hours per year or in both usage and the PV panels, it was just using that exact data to determine the different percentages.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
So right now, the city's entire electricity load for buildings and operations is about 5.5 million kilowatt hours. So this takes that up by about 40%, 30 to 40% with one building. I think I know there's a lot of good places the money could be used if there is extra budget available, water retention and occupant health and things like that. I think the more we can do to bring this as close to net zero energy as possible, I think would be money well spent. Putting more solar up, I don't think makes as much sense when the denominator is so high. And if we can reduce that total energy load, I think that would be a really good way to go. Because that is a tremendous increase in the city's overall electricity use.
Yeah, I'd like to provide a little extra context as well. So the 15 kilowatt hours per year per square foot for solar panels, I did the math on my solar PV system that's 5 years old. Over those 5 years, every square foot has averaged 24 kilowatt hours. So I think this is a pretty conservative estimate, which is probably prudent. But I do wonder about the total energy usage. I looked up the McFarland Public Safety Building, which has, the rooftop is something like 56,000 square feet. They've got 470 kilowatt PV system, and the building is net zero. And if you just do the math, our building is half as big, but would require somehow 3 times as much electricity or 3 times as much total energy. And I'm wondering how that can be. So, a large chunk of theirs is probably garage because it's combined police, fire, and municipal court. So I don't know how much square footage is non-garage, but the numbers just seem really high here for energy consumption.
I understand that City Hall is not operated 24/7 as a whole, but the portion that is police is, and I know that's a very small bit of City Hall. They're bursting at the seams as we know. But the police that are, the current police operations are part of that City Hall usage. So some of City Hall is 24/7 at the moment.
Yes. No, these are all great, much appreciated input. So let me follow up with a couple questions. So the first data, I think you had mentioned, Phil, 5.5 million kilowatt hours for, you said all city facilities. So is that
For all city facilities and operations, our total KWH usage is 5.6 million. The largest building we have right now is City Hall at about 720,000 kilowatt hours a year. I know fire and police are different, but our two fire stations are at 160,000. 250,000 and 200,000.
okay?
And Phil, that
So this
doesn't
would
take
be-
into account the offset by the solar PV systems on those buildings. right?
Correct.
This is raw.
That's just that
right.
is raw. That's net
Okay.
usage. Yep.
Okay, no, that's great, because yes, I absolutely. I mean, I've asked twice and our engineers, but this absolutely warrants with this other comparison set and data, not only the 5.5 million, but then you said that was McFarland. Is that the other project that you referenced?
That was me, yeah. McFarland, so their
Yeah,
public safety building, I think it opened about 2 years ago, maybe, ballpark. And like I said,
Okay.
you can Google for that and find all the information
Yes.
that I found, but it's 56,000 square feet, 470 kilowatt PV system, and it's net zero.
Now, McFarland is quite a bit smaller than Fitchburg, but yeah, that is a much larger square footage. It's combination police and fire and their courts, so a full public safety, public facilities building. Yeah.
Okay. So yes. So I think the goal, as I'm hearing, is first of all to double, triple, quadruple check. And I know there's probably some conservatism here, but double check the rate of generation per square foot, as well as the overall building usage. The other thing, Phil, it sounded like you said, is when we go back to the big picture, one of the goals is just to try to think overall about how to get closer and closer to net zero. Then it sounds like if I go back to our chart, then some of the other ways to most effectively attack that goal is to often focus on all of your exterior envelope performance.
Before we get there, I got one question for Phil.
Okay.
So I got a general question. What does everybody think about this carport structure? You're spending $300,000 for $30,000 of solar panels. Does that make sense? You're getting this for 1,700 square feet of solar. Does it make sense to spend $300,000 on a structure to hold that $30,000 of EV panels? I mean, are there better options for that?
I agree with that. I think I think the carport structure is.
Well, so the carport structure, in addition to supporting the solar panels, would also offer protection of the cars and the asphalt underneath. So, there would be less maintenance required. I'm thinking snow plowing for sure. But just, when the sun beats down directly on the pavement, you have to do maintenance more often, and that's worth something. I don't know how much.
Well, it all depends on how the wind is blowing for snow.
Well, that looked like a pretty large area, though.
We have about 7 minutes left, so.
I agree with what Phil said. I think we need to do something to reduce the overall energy usage. And I think on that carport, the bang for the buck is just not there. We talked the last time in January, we talked about the green roof that you've now included. And at that time, the discussion was there's maintenance involved and who's going to do the maintenance. And, I can appreciate that you might want something green up there for staff that use it, but they can always get some plants and put up there temporarily during the nicer weather. I don't know. I think I'm not sure we need to spend the money doing that.
For Carport or?
Green roof.
They seem pretty pricey.
Okay.
Is that 60,000?
Let's go to assuming the limit time. Let's go through the exterior building envelope real quickly, Brian.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I do think energy reduction goals, you're right, focusing on any enhancement to envelope for both as it relates to the roof enhancements, the walls, and even some of the glazing. So again, because we're under the 5 million, we could accept all of these and really, and then knowing they're accepted, we could have our engineers recalculate the energy use and say, hey, we're going to accept all these enhancements. So how does that tighter envelope maybe recalculate and reduce the energy? So a quick recap on this, and some of these, most of them are energy performance related, some are a bit more acoustical. The first one is a little bit more acoustical. I mean, triple glazing will help, obviously, in energy performance, but it also has acoustical mitigation properties. So we have proposed, and we could look at even more of it, but we took about 7 windows that were most close to the generator on the north and northeast, and we said those 7 windows should go from a typical 1-inch insulated glass unit to a triple glazing. With on a commercial level, unit price conservatively that we're using with our cost estimator is about a $40 a square foot upgrade enhancement, go from 1-inch insulated to triple glazing. So we took the $40 premium, timed those 7 windows, and that's about $11,000 offset or upgrade for the windows, which will be performance plus acoustics for that north and northeast corner. The next 2 categories are walls and roofs. And so quick summary, because I know we're getting short on time. For walls, you can see there's a system of going above and beyond the code minimums. If we add a series of spray and or rigid insulation to the different wall types we have, which the majority of it, 10,000 of our exterior envelope is stud wall, metal stud framing behind the masonry. About 8,500 of our walls is CMU wall, concrete block wall backup. And then there is some thermal mass with the concrete walls in the basement that could look at this design to have 3 more inches of rigid insulation added. So all of those wall types on the exterior, from the CMU, the metal stud backup, and the thermal mass, we've all proposed some enhancements that all of the walls together, you can see how if you want to focus on for sure the wall upgrades, that those are going to get you, those together are like $200, almost $300,000 with the walls. And then the roofs are the same. So we started the basis of design with the code with an R30 with the insulation. And you add 1 or 2 inches of rigid insulation to the roof, you're going to achieve greater R values and have even better thermal protection. Now we are going to, that's 120,000. We finished up schematic design, so we are going to be rerunning our Cove tool energy model, and we can put in that tool, what the difference is, the anticipated energy reduction going from R30 to R35 or R40. And with each of those calculations, it'll also say, based on the energy cost in Wisconsin, what is the energy savings and the ROI for each of those options. So you can start to figure out, okay, at 120,000 initial cost, what's the payback period to realize the energy savings for that 120,000. So even though we don't have all those data done now, within the next month with our Cove tool energy model, we will be able to get some ROI information, payback period. And then the last one, because we know we're doing a lot of solar, we're wanting to strengthen and enhance the different parts of our roof system. So again, a 60 millimeter membrane is kind of standard. And if we're making a more durable, thicker membrane for that roofing, that's going to extend the life of the roof and help with the PVs on it. So that was another premium that has to do with, the roof enhancements. So I think all of those in category 3.5 with optimizing energy performance, I mean, in summary, I think almost all of them are going to help with that whole envelope, which is in effect going to reduce probably the energy cost, and that will then reduce that overall number that we had in the kilowatt hours. That will start to have your percentage go much higher than the 11 or 12% offset that I was mentioning a little bit ago.
Brian, when would you have that number available?
Well, we are meeting, I would say probably a month, because Focus on Energy is another whole group that's woven into this process, and we're supposed to meet with them here in November to give them an update on where we are. And besides our energy modeling, Focus on Energy has a energy modeling tool that they would do as well once they had an updated floor plan and design that they knew was pretty close to what we were heading with. So again, I'll get back with the whole design team, but here we are approaching the middle of November. I would hope that in about a month, before the Christmas holidays, that we could have some updates.
Brian,
our plan is to come back to the January RCC meeting with more fine numbers. We want to just get some feedback tonight, so we can kind of get some direction on which way to go with some of these items.
I saw mention of using mechanically ventilating with an energy recovery ventilator, but in this building envelope section, I don't see anything about air sealing and trying to make the building as airtight as possible. Can you say just 30 seconds on that?
Even though it's not listed as a line in this matrix option chart, I do think that is going to be part of the design goal, that there would be the testing done to see how tightly sealed we can get this envelope. And so I will obviously get back with the design team and our engineers, but I do think that would be part of this effort.
Part of the foam will also, towards tightening up the building as well, the spray foam will tighten up the building quite a bit.
I'm not a fan of spray foam. The disposal path for that seems to be the foam and everything it's attached to goes to the landfill. So if you can stick as much as possible to the rigid board, which itself isn't great, but at least it's reusable and or recyclable. And then I'm assuming tape is typically, some kind of tape is typically used for air sealing.
There's a spray-on vapor barrier that's put on the building, correct, Brian?
Yes.
There's a spray-on vapor barrier that's ahead of all this other items.
So as Paul said, we are coming back in January, and I guess of the, everything that's listed in column G does come up to about 3.8 million. So it sounds like some of the feedback we've gotten that we can take to the design team is definitely maybe not seeing the value as much in the carport structure, really focusing on other ways to improve the energy, the envelope. There's been some comments about maybe the green roof not being quite worth it for that small portion. And then the other areas, just to quickly summarize, I know we didn't get a lot of in-depth, but we have thoroughly taken the electric vehicle and EV chargers to the goal of what we heard from the PD, and that is if they have a 27-car garage inside, that we outline a long-term plan to have all 27 parking spaces have future infrastructure-ready outlets, 200-volt outlets, 208, 40 amp, that would be able to accommodate at someday, 40, 50-year lifespan of this building, all EVs for the 27 spots, plus a couple dual port charging stations in the public. There's only a 7 or 8 car little public lot. So we'd have 1 dual port there and 2 dual port charging stations in the outside staff lot. And those are all outlined in options 1, 2, and 3, where you could take them all additively together, and that would get you that strategic master plan of charging for the site.
Hey Brian, on the public chargers, by any chance, have you been in touch with MG&E yet? If not, I'd be happy to get in touch with them. I'm just thinking about when a municipal government gets into providing public charging, it gets a little bit dicey. It's just more complicated. I know that the model that we already have at our community center and library is that MG&E owns those chargers, and then they just provide that service, and the revenue from the chargers goes directly to MG&E. I would be interested in getting in touch with MG&E and see if they'd be interested in doing that again at our police facility, rather than Fitchburg trying to get into the business of providing public charging in that way. And if that's the best way to do it, then we can look into that. But I'm curious to reach out to MG&E and see what they think. I don't know if you had talked about that at all yet.
I had not. No, some of the correspondence you had sent about, we had one charge point, which is the one model. We had some prices there, which I know was like 6,000 plus per station, and you had suggested some other options too. So we did not reach out to MG&E, but we looked at Eaton. We looked at another company that had like $2,000 or less dual port stations that had less bells and whistles. That we use that as a basis of design. But you're right, in terms of like municipalities getting in the business of charging, we did not go to that level yet.
Okay. I'll reach out to MG&E this week and just kind of put out some feelers there and see if that's worth having a conversation.
Okay, we need to wrap up here.
I have a couple more things. I mean, we need to get this hashed out.
Okay.
I have just clarification on your occupancy sensors. That's for air conditioning and heating and lighting. Is that correct?
The daylight and occupancy sensors are for the building, for daylight, for the light fixtures, for sure. And in terms of for the AC system, I'll have to double check as much. I know for daylighting, obviously it's very much controlling the lights themselves. In terms of occupancies, like if no occupants are in the bathroom or however it's zoned or in the garage, how that affects the mechanical system. So I can verify that, but the short answer there is that in the last section you can see that there is current daylight occupancy sensors being designed in. There is a premium enhanced system, which could, and there was a little bit of description of what that enhancement would be in our narrative. But if that was accepted, that enhancement could be in the tune of, potentially, and again, it has to get verified because we plugged in the whole building cost right now, which, would put it up over $300,000. But if, let's say, the lower level, which over half the lower level is one big open garage, which isn't going to have as detailed sensoring because of just being one big garage, it may, in this next round before we meet with you in January, at 3.8.2, may get verification from our engineers to say, okay, that one you should clarify and reduce the unit square footage down a little bit. So that one will be clarified, but that's my response, I guess, for now for those two items.
Do you have another question, Diane?
No, that was it. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Okay.
Wrap up here.
Brian, could you let us know your email address? I do have a few more questions, but I don't want to take up everybody's time.
Sure, absolutely. I can send it through to Paul and Phil, but it's basically my first name, so Brian Mead at fgmarchitects.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I can share that after the meeting too.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for your input. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 4B, 2025 RCC event planning. We talked about this last time. We thought we'd just keep carrying that discussion.
Yeah, just a brainstorm opportunity if anyone wanted to share some potential ideas, prior to hopefully finalizing the calendar within the next couple of meetings here. Did anyone have any thoughts that they wanted to share, bring up for a potential event next year?
So I'm assuming we're going to still have this, I'll say the standard things, which is
clean stream cleanup,
Right.
recycling events, things like that. But looking for, potentially an annual event and like maybe quarterly events or something that could be done like we had last year for the.
Yeah,
like
I mean, we
football
packed
or
them all into, kind of a 4-month period, but we had kind of the pollinating event in May, and then we had the EB 101 in June, and then July, I think, was the BU Bring Your Own Bag event. So like, kind of pack those in kind of tight. In general, we'd like to spread those out. One of the things that we've done in the past that was maybe, always good discussion, but we used to have a thing called Green Thursdays, and we really kind of tried to brand on that. And we would show documentaries and just rent out a room at the library and just, the library, I think at the time was providing popcorn, or somebody was providing popcorn.
Was that once a month or?
Well, this was.
Thursday?
Yeah, I think it was.
It might have been monthly for a little while, but like,
Yeah.
I think, even if we were doing that, when we weren't having like an in-person event, like, just fill in, right now, like maybe in November or sometime in the winter months, just having some like a documentary where, and even we could lead a few, Q&A and get comments from, people in attendance and just kind of let people talk about what they saw in the documentary. I mean, I thought they were, and the library actually, kind of prompted some of those Q&A sessions.
They were great. I thought they were great films, but that was done in conjunction with the Sierra Club?
Yeah, there was somebody that was.
And they stopped, and so we were able to get it. I don't think we paid for it. I think we just borrowed it from them. And they circulated through Fitchburg and Middleton, Monona, but that program stopped. However, I saw that Sierra Club was doing an online movie about coexisting with wolves. So maybe we can do something with.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, it was just kind of a nice way for like-minded
other,
people to come together and have a discussion about it.
The other option is to buy the movies. I mean, you can buy a lot of these. I'm trying to think of the organization. Their films are like $10. It's a nonprofit.
I think that could easily fit within our budget that we have set aside. So.
Yeah, there was just one recently at Lucier, the Wabisa Wetlands. I don't know if anyone went to go see that.
Yeah, I've got it on my laptop. So
so that would be something really excellent.
Sure.
It's right here local.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was about a hour-long presentation.
Yeah.
It was really
very well done.
Yeah.
So these are less intensive in the fact that we're not coordinating a speaker and kind of everything that goes along with that. So a little simpler events to get in the mix, I think our goal was 4 events, but I think we're more at like 3 events this year. So we were doing routinely 4 or more events before COVID, and I think we're kind of working back to that. So I'm just thinking that might be an idea to pull back into the mix. In terms of other ideas, I think potentially the dark sky ordinance might be, a good idea for an event that, if that all kind of comes through, I think that.
Well, you probably could work that in conjunction with the Madison Astronomical Society.
Yeah, I mean, somebody
that's
that's
happy to do that. John Rummel gave a presentation to us for that, so.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
I noticed Madison Public Library all summer has been doing at different branches events, like they had one how to maintain your bicycle, and I realized that's kind of overlapping with the Bike and Ped Committee, but I think that would be a great thing to do. We could do that at McKee Park, have somebody come in and explain to people, and I'm not exactly sure how much the library had. They had some volunteers actually tuning up people's bikes that they brought in. And I don't know, I could find out what other programs the library did, but I thought that would be, I think, that would garner some interest.
What about doing a night ride? I just saw something on the news about this huge group in China. Did a night ride with all these bicycles. They were lit up and everything.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because so December 13th is the Get Festive at Agora event, and I had suggested, that we have like a nighttime bike ride that could go around and do the Holiday Lights tour. So Bike Fitchburg is trying to have a table at that event and have, educational materials on proper dress and how to, you know, studded tires, lights, etc., for safe winter biking. But, you know, if we get enough people there, that was something I was looking forward to doing.
Great. Yeah, one thought I had, there'll be, you know, Stormwater Week in probably September next year, but maybe doing some kind of a little community rain garden type thing or a downspout garden, just kind of going over how to do your own at your own house, and maybe have some people, you know, you can have them put in the plant plugs and that kind of stuff. So perhaps something like that in September.
Are we still having issues in the Sherrill Drive area with water coming down and to the street?
I think that's been pretty well resolved with the project that was completed last year.
Their yards. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll have to think about maybe a good location to do something like that.
Another event that we haven't done for a while is just like, I think we called it a master composter event, and it was probably back in 2011 or 2012 where we just talked to people about how to compost properly at home. We haven't done anything, you know, along those lines.
Well, our food waste one that was supposed to be at Promega was canceled because of the pandemic, so we haven't really done that for the public, right?
And that was going to have a composting component, so we never really did do the food waste one, and that's only going to pick up steam here as the, you know, Dane County and the Sustainability Campus work towards becoming a reality. Organics collection is a bigger topic. You know, I know that we did make some effort last year to try to, you know, work with Sustain Dane, you know, and I think, you know, we'll circle back to that now that we're past kind of, you know, the farmer's market part of the season, even though I know that it kind of can go inside now, I think. But circling back to see if we can maybe do that in the spring, because we never got that to a pilot stage last year. There's all these collection points. Dane County's doing some, we just don't have Fitchburg represented on the organics collection. So, you know, kind of seeing, you know, one, I'd like us to be involved, you know, with, you know, kind of, you know, how is it working at a drop-off location, like a farmer's market. Two, I'd like us to be in the forefront of working with the county when we're getting to the stage of organics collection at the, you know, back at the residential level, and how that's gonna look potentially within, you know, the greater Dane County area. We could go back and reorg that food waste event that never happened in 2020.
I think that would be great, and if we can get the Sustain Dane folks, if we can get that composting started at the farmer's market, it would be perfectly timed.
Yeah, because you could kind of
people
launch
on what they can bring and that it exists. I think that would be a great thing to do.
Have we had a recycling?
I agree.
Have we had a recycling?
Oh, sorry, I was just chiming in to say I would agree with that as well, with the food waste and composting. I think that is a great topic for people.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Sorry to have our back to you. We need to put
That's
your
right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. I have my camera off mostly just because of my internet connection, so.
So have we had a recycling event with Pelletary where we talk about what you have in your household, your refrigerator, your cabinets, whatever, when you throw it away, this is what you can recycle, this is what you can't. Every time my wife says, "Can I recycle this?" Well, look at the list. Well, the list doesn't have this on there. So I bring things in and say, this is what you can recycle, this is what you can't, and have them bring things in or talk about things.
Maybe combine that with a, you know, a documentary, because they've got a video.
Yeah.
Pelletary has a video on proper recycling within the home.
It's not tailored to Fitchburg though.
Correct.
They tell you that you should throw away some things that we're still collecting.
Yeah, when
because
in
we
doubt,
can't.
throw it out, as their big.
Yeah, we have done a couple recycling events with Pelletary, and I think last year, Phil, didn't you have some kind of a display? Was that just for students over at the library with a recycling display?
That was a few years ago. Dane County brought their trash lab over to the library parking lot, and I did set up a display there. But that, gosh, if that was after the pandemic, it was right when things started opening up. It's been a few years.
Yeah. It was before COVID. I mean,
Yeah,
after,
I mean, I
after
think
COVID.
I would maybe prioritize that for later 2025 or 26. Like I would prioritize the food waste first and the composting. But I think, you know, I had some conversations with the Pelletary folks that talked with us. Todd, I believe his name was, talked to him and, you know, was asking about our site, you know, out here. And he said, you guys have a lot of contamination in your polystyrene box. So there's a lot of like, you know, kind of the, you know, kind of almost like the styrofoam wrap type stuff that people are placing in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like the black polystyrene that isn't recyclable that's getting placed in there. There's Packy peanuts that are getting placed in there. So
There's stuff that looks like styrofoam, but it isn't.
there's extensive, you know, contamination in there right now with what they can do, but Pelletary is always evolving with how they can find more ways and more uses for products, and I think that there's going to be some places where those things that are currently contamination might have a place in that recycling stream, and they're thinking about switching out that container too. So,
and that was outlined in their proposal. So started in 2025, there may be some more opportunities to put in packing peanuts or those films. So I think rather than try to stop the contamination, it was just easier to figure out how to actually recycle it.
yeah, right. So I think, you know, like the timing of the recycling might be 2026. You know, in the meantime, maybe we can do a little bit more outreach on the videos that they do have available, you know, the ones that do apply to kind of maybe more of those household type items that people might question a little bit, but like maybe we can look at more of a recycling event when we get to 2026 and focus on food waste and compost.
Maybe we could double check that FACTv is still showing those videos, because we gave them those videos maybe, I don't know, time frame is kind of screwed up in my mind, but 3 years ago. So maybe we could just check to see if they're still showing them.
Yeah, I'll find out.
And something along that line, slightly different, but I haven't seen any of those leaf-free signs or whatever we had that we put out to remind people to keep the gutters free of leaves. I think we need to hit that harder next fall, because I didn't see anything on, not that I watch FACTv that much, sorry Fact. But I didn't see anything on the city's website or in yard signs. We have those yard signs still, don't we?
I do still have some.
Yeah, I think we should put that on the calendar, that in September we need to hit that a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Diane, I was gonna bring this up. I totally agree. I was working on my street, trying to get all of the leaves away from the stormwater gutters, and then today the street sweeper came through and was like cleaning up, you know, some of it. So yeah, I think that would be a really good public education opportunity for us as well, and with the signs as well.
Yeah, I would agree, Kim. You know, I was doing the same, and I have noticed the street sweepers coming through a little bit more this fall. I don't know if they're on a more frequent schedule, but I think I've seen them a couple times come through.
Yeah, I mean, right now they really should be just pretty much going, you know, constantly throughout the days. I know, I think it was last year, there's 2 street sweepers that the city had, and I think one of them was down for a little bit last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, this time of the year, they're pretty much the hardest working vehicles in the fleet.
Okay. Well, that's a good deal. So, like, I did see, like, a neighbor of mine, like, blowing leaves out into the street.
I saw that happen too.
You know, so, like, you know, there is an educational component there, but, like, when I compared to a neighboring community that I drove through this past weekend, where they, you know, I don't know what they're told, but, like, they put all their leaves actually in the street.
Madison used to tell their residents to do that. I don't know if they
It wasn't Madison, but it was, I won't name the community, but I did notice that, like, pretty much everybody on this whole stretch of street had all their leaves out in the street. And, you know, I haven't seen that around Fitchburg. Yeah. So we're not there, but, you know, I do think that you know, keeping up on that outreach is important. I mean, phosphorus and chloride are the things that we're attacking. So, you know, like, you know, those are the biggest issues in our waterways and lakes and streams. And so those are the topics that I think we need to continue to hit year after year.
Along those lines, when we hit, like September, when we hit getting the leaves out of the streets, keeping them out of the streets, we should remind people that they can come to City Hall and get one of those reusable bags.
Sure,
Because I'm going around and I'm seeing all these plastic bags of leaves and not one reusable bag. And you can get one per resident per year.
Yeah.
I think we need to.
Where you can buy them for $1.
Here?
Yeah.
I think.
You get a free one and then you can purchase
yeah.
extras.
I think we need to publicize that. That sort of has fallen by the way. And along the publicity part, I had a heck of a time finding out whether or not Fitchburg was participating in the drug take back event. It wasn't on the city's website. It wasn't on the news, any of the local news stations. It wasn't in the paper. All the other communities, I don't know if it was all of them, but several other communities were listed in the paper and on the local news sites, and Fitchburg was not one of them. And I can't remember exactly how I found it, but it was through Dane County. One of their sites included Fitchburg. And we took advantage of it, but there was not a line of people dropping their medication off. And as I understand it, that's done in April and October. So if we're not going to have med drop at our e-cycle event and our paper shredding event, we really need to promote when this is available and why it's important to get these drugs out of the house and disposed of properly. So isn't it in April?
Yeah, April and October are the 2 months, I believe.
October 26th was this one for this fall.
Yeah, it wasn't on the city's calendar and it wasn't on the event page.
We'll talk with PD about coordinating that more next year.
Is it their job to publicize that?
They're the ones that run it, but certainly we could help publicize it. Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to write an article for March, if we get the April date, telling people what's going on.
I'll check in with them on that.
Okay, so it sounds like we have some events here. I think what I'll do, I'll make it an action item for me, is I'll put together a table of what we have so far here and just circulate.
Well, I'll put that, I'll put all these ideas in the minutes.
Okay.
My computer's in the process of dying and I didn't bring the charging cord, so.
Okay.
I'm taking some notes right now.
Okay, well, good.
At some point I'll be able to transfer these over to the
Okay,
computer.
good.
Not the most efficient way, but it's gonna have to work tonight.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, are we going to do those Saltwise signs again?
Yes, I do have some that we can put
That
up
we can
again.
put out?
Yeah, probably pretty soon.
Yeah, I found mine in the garage yesterday, cleaning
Not
up.
based on a forecast.
Right.
No, the ones I picked up had been christened by neighborhood dogs, so those were recycled.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item 4C, erosion control and stormwater management ordinance update.
Sure, I will go ahead and share my screen so everyone can follow along here. All right. So here is, I'll zoom in so people can read here. Just kind of the current the current ordinance with track changes in red. I'll go through some of these updates. This one just was a statute change, nothing really significant. And I guess I'll just start with the preface of what the goal and why we're looking to update this. Part of it is to be consistent with Dane County's current stormwater and erosion control ordinance. So there are some things that the city of Fitchburg doesn't have in their ordinance that Dane County does. When applicants apply for an erosion control or stormwater management permit, they have to basically meet whatever is more stringent between the city of Fitchburg and Dane County. So just for consistency and I think just to make it easier for folks trying to figure out what requirements they need to meet, there's a benefit to being consistent with what's already at the county. So that's really
Ben, has the county updated their 100-year storm event yet? Have they updated their criteria?
So the numbers as far as what constitutes a 100-year storm is right now it's 6.6 inches in the 24-hour period. That has not been updated, and that probably won't be updated until NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, provides some new data.
So the city couldn't update their criteria without that kind of foundation?
Yeah, I don't know that we would be comfortable in doing that without having some more, scientific data that we can point to. That was, I think it was updated in 2016 or 17, the current number. So it used to be 6 inches, now it's 6.66. So it has increased in the last decade.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know what that was, so I was just gonna ask that
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Updated and, it's probably a moving target, right?
Yeah, so
But at least
it's not like it's really old numbers that we're
right.
using. They are fairly current.
I think.
It's
I
what everyone
would
uses.
agree with, Fitchburg just not stepping outside that, even though we know what happened, in 2018 in Middleton, that was, 8 to 10 inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period. So, we know that those things are possible around here.
Yeah, it's always a possibility. But we do have some other things in here to try to promote more kind of infiltration and reducing peak rates further that don't involve, making people use a different design storm or different rainfall depths. So we did make some changes to the definitions. We defined closed watershed. So basically any kind of an internally draining area. The big Sub-Zero or Pro Mega Kettle just south of Sub-Zero Parkway is kind of a good example of what a closed watershed is. So, this runoff drains into there, but it doesn't have, there's no pipe going out to a river, a creek or whatever. It either has to infiltrate or evaporate. So when you have these internally draining or closed watersheds, there are some more concerns that go along with development in those areas. Obviously, you don't want, to create a permanent pond where there wasn't one before, and people are losing land as a result of development. So that was defined here. Green infrastructure was defined as well. This was taken straight from Dane County's definition. Illicit discharge was updated to match exactly what Dane County has. Same with this potentially polluting substance. This was also straight from Dane County's illicit discharge ordinance. And that is it for definitions.
That potentially polluting, it says in that first line, discharge to waters of Fitchburg. Is that what Dane County had in there, or was that just?
That was, that's not.
Did they have Dane County instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was changed to be specific.
And on your page 17, B1A, you added a colon, but there's already one there. Got a double colon.
17, okay. Thank you. And then go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think maybe just have somebody read through the whole thing, because I'm almost certain I saw some other grammatical thing that I didn't take a note of.
I'm certain there are. Yeah. We'll have this copy edited before.
Who does that?
Move further.
Well, that's Chris Jameson does that.
Probably Dina, one of our administrative assistants. We'll have a few people look over it. obviously this group here. If you see
Call
it.
that our A-team in the consulting world, you know, the team that
Your A
finds
team?
all of our formatting and grammatical errors.
Technical.
Should be your E-team, editing.
So some other changes, as far as exemptions from infiltration standards. Again, this was just from the county. It says expansion of municipal or county roads, whereas previously the city just had roads in commercial, industrial, and institutional land uses and arterial roads. So a small change there. Let's see what else we got.
Erosion control performance.
Yep, so again, this 7.5, this was, you know, when people are doing their erosion control signs, that erosion control designs, they fill out a spreadsheet and it basically estimates how many tons of soil would be lost in a year per acre based on, you know, the information on the site, the types of soils, the slopes. It used to be the standard was 7.5 tons per acre annually. That is now 5 tons per acre annually. So that's again what Dane County and the rest of the municipalities in Dane County has, and what Fitchburg has been using for a while now. So that's just to get that in there.
So we're not any more restrictive than Dane County. And right here with this, we're not even, we're mirroring what they have.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. So we also did add just some information on more specifics with erosion control. So we're basically saying, you know, preventing soil from being tracked, just some more prescriptive requirements for people to think about with their erosion control.
What about vehicles like these gravel trucks going to and from the gravel and have other sand and stuff all in it, you know, it's coming out of the vehicle either, you know, inadvertently or blowing out and things like that. How is that? Is that being monitored, or they don't pull their covers back over the trucks? I don't know why they're there. I guess they don't have to then?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any kind of statute or law requiring that they do that, and I think that comes, you know, that'd be a difficult thing probably to monitor.
You bicycle with pedal on Lacey Road, there's a lot of gravel in the road coming from these gravel trucks. So it's kind of like a hazard on the road. But
And that can be with, you know, in a car too. I mean, like bike even worse.
Yeah.
But like in a car, like, you know, I'm normally, if I see cover not on, I see soil in the back, and they're going 60 miles an hour down the belt line, I'm trying to get around them as fast as I can.
yeah.
You know, because, you know, there's generally something flying out of them. But I will say that, you know, I saw worse things in, you know, I was recently in Arizona and I saw they had, you know, vehicles taking, you know, recycled cardboard, and essentially I saw pieces just flying off of that. You know, I saw cardboard all the way down from Phoenix all the way down to Tucson. I'm like, why is there so much cardboard? And I saw all these trucks taking cardboard waste down to Tucson.
And they get to their destination and the truck
They
is
have half the
empty.
load. Yeah, they have half the load, and I'm like,
Plus it's hot and dry, that's a fire hazard.
oh yeah, no, it wasn't good. I mean, like, we don't have that going on here, but like, I have noticed this.
Yeah, I'll have to find out. Maybe there's some things that other folks and some of our neighbors are doing about that.
I mean, just basically like coming from that gravel pit that's right off of Lacey over there that I know of.
I don't know that it's coming out the top though. I think it comes out the bottom.
The bottom, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're getting into the stormwater management plan requirements here. There were some changes, so this is just a new standard for street reconstruction. Basically just stating that you know, they'll have to reduce total suspended solids by 40%. Runoff rate control, so the peak rate coming off of sites, we added in this 200-year, 24-hour requirement. So again, this is from the county. This is something that the county changed a few years ago. The city's been requiring it, just wasn't in the ordinance yet. This here, safely pass storm events in excess of the 500-year 24-hour event. Previously, this was 100. This basically just means, you know, if someone's designing their subdivision or their site, we want to make sure, you know, if, let's say they have a pond, if it overflows and overtops, we want to make sure that water is not going to flood out some adjacent structure up to a 500-year event where it was previously 100 years. So again, you know, if you get a 1,000-year event, kind of all bets are off. Can't really design everything to that, but 500-year, that's what the city of Madison had, and that's a pretty realistic thing. It's not saying that you can't have water running in the streets in a 500-year event. Of course, that's going to happen. It's just more about protecting property up to the 500-year event.
And again, this is what Dane County has?
I don't believe Dane County has the 500-year.
Okay.
The city of Madison does.
Okay.
And some of this stuff here is also more based off of what the city of Madison has, or basically these three things.
So when you say, 500-year event, which is basically 9 inches over 24 hours, what do you assume the initial conditions are? Because 9 inches of rain after 3 dry months is quite different from 9 inches of rain after a very rainy season.
Yeah, so that's called the antecedent moisture condition.
I was going to say that, but I didn't think these guys would understand that.
Yeah, so when people do complete their models, it's kind of like an assumption of, not totally dry, not totally saturated, somewhere in between, just because that is going to be most often the condition. So that's kind of the standard that people do these models at.
Assume average precipitation until any event of, okay.
That's the idea. Yeah. So here, this is just some more guidance for designers when they're designing their site. Say they have a site that's got this big existing depression on it that holds a bunch of water. They need to take that into account when they're doing their pre-development calculations. This just kind of outlines that. This piece here regarding redevelopment is from Dane County. So if you have a redevelopment site where impervious surfaces covered over 80% of the site, when they go and do their redevelopment activities, they have to use green infrastructure. Right here it talks about using green infrastructure to capture at least the first ½ inch of rainfall over the total site impervious area. So that could be green roof, pavers, bioswales, whatever. And then these two bullets above that are just more kind of design standards to help with the designers.
Before you scroll down, let's take a look at that in light of where the police department, the new police station is going to be. So that's a proposed impervious cover that's exceeding 80%, right?
Well, this is just for redevelopment.
Well, wouldn't that be considered you redeveloping that property?
That would be considered new development, just
Construction?
New construction, yeah. So they don't have the specific green infrastructure requirement, but they do have really more stringent standards than the redevelopment standards. So for example, redevelopment is exempt from meeting infiltration standards, whereas new development is not.
Okay.
So the police station will have, this wouldn't apply to it, but they'll actually have to meet more stringent standards than what's outlined in here. Let's see here.
So we're in about 5 minutes.
Okay,
almost 10 minutes over.
We can go quick here.
I'm feeling.
That's okay.
So this stuff is all just added. So a lot of these regional basins in the city were designed for a 100-year event. Now there's this 200-year event requirement. So if there's a new development in one of these areas that drains to a 100-year basin, they have to make up the difference on their site between the 200 and 100. This just outlines how they're supposed to do those calculations. So that's the bulk of it. There is one other, this is just kind of administrative stuff. There's one other kind of major component, might be maybe the more important things in here right at the end. So this is curve number. So basically, if you have a low curve number, like 30 is woodland for hydrologic soil group A, that just means more water that falls is going to stay on the site and kind of be absorbed versus, you know, agricultural land with maybe more clayey soils, you're going to have a higher curve number, meaning that more water is going to run off. So right now, if you're developing an agricultural site, you can use these higher cropland curve numbers. Basically, meaning you won't necessarily have to detain as much water as if you were assuming it was a grassland.
If it's cropland, you look at it considering whether there's crops on it or not, whether it's bare soil like it is out there now, as they cut down the.
Yeah, so if there's crops on it, basically, if it's being used for agricultural purposes at any time, they can use these higher curve numbers. These curve numbers, this is what Dane County has, this is what the city of Madison has.
Okay.
A couple of our neighbors, Middleton and Verona, they also do not allow designers to use this cropland curve number. So that would be something I would recommend.
That we eliminate that.
That we eliminate, and then basically everyone has to assume that the pre-development condition it's actually more of a pre-settlement condition. Sure. So what was it like before people even settled this area? Oregon has something kind of similar. It's a little bit different, but you know, there's a lot of reasons why it could be advantageous to.
So when it says grassland, you're talking about kind of a savanna sort of?
Like a prairie. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, with that, those are kind of the main updates. If anyone's got questions, we'll be discussing this tomorrow with some staff, going through the changes, getting feedback.
So then that goes to the council for approval then?
Don't have a timeline for that yet,
Okay.
but next year sometime.
Okay.
After you discuss it with staff, then what's the next step?
I'll bring it back here to go over any kind of changes.
Okay.
If they don't have, it'll probably be a lot easier to make updates to an existing ordinance, you know, versus like the dark sky ordinance. So I don't expect it to take 2 years to do, but I'll bring it back once I get feedback and if there are changes. Okay. Yeah.
Great. All right, thanks, Ben.
Nice job.
Yeah, great job. All right, let's move on to agenda item 5, old business, 5A. And is Andy on?
No.
No? So 2025 Fitchburg Star article schedule.
But Chris sent out a recap of what we discussed. So I think we have articles scheduled through January or February, right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was, gonna pull those up, but maybe I'll pull them up on my phone.
And I'll write one for March to advertise assuming that drug take back is in early April. Otherwise, I'll write it for later in April.
Sounds good.
I have one already, for April, I think, on birds that I submitted, but the mayor overrode.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
That one's there already. I just have to send a reminder.
Which one, when is that gonna go out?
I think it was April.
It was supposed to go out in April, or you want it to go out next April?
I have to look and see, but I think it was April.
Okay.
So we gained some time there.
Well, I mean, can we review quickly what we had for those other months?
So we have November's.
I think Jim is on the list for an article.
Talking trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Were we
So December.
gonna do that for December, or did we have another idea for?
I don't have your, I bet I could pull up your email.
I'm trying to pull it up. I'm also taking.
Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up.
The latest The latest that I had, and this was, I think I missed last month, so it was from 2 months ago, but the latest I had was Chris doing Salt in November and Jim doing Talking Trash in December.
Okay.
And then we had Andy set up for January, but I didn't have February written down yet.
So we could use one for February? Because we're gonna...
unless you discussed it in October. I don't know if anybody already claimed that.
I listened to the October meeting and there was no discussion on it.
No, yeah.
Okay. So then February is open, and then we have Diane in March and Ron in April.
Yeah, but our next meeting will be in January, so be nice to select somebody for the February article now if we can. The topic doesn't need to be decided, maybe just...
Yeah, I'll sign up for February. I'll think of something.
Who's doing January?
I think Andy.
Andy had volunteered for that.
Okay.
So I think that's a good check, and then
Take us through.
I'll probably just have a follow-up with Andy. I had just gotten back from Africa, so I had completely forgotten that I had an article assignment until...
You pulled it together.
Yeah, this time. It was good.
So I had to...
I found your email, Chris, and there was a suggested topic, Fitchburg buildings recognized by ash rate.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who was thinking about writing that,
Well, I was thinking about that. Because you have the school, and then Promega won some awards. So
well, maybe you can.
maybe I could just get that in the hopper just in case somebody misses.
Yeah,
one of them or whatever.
yeah, stick it sometime for next year.
Okay.
Somebody going to remind Jim that he has an article due.
I can talk to him about that one because we were
Okay.
thinking about that one possibly together, but I don't want to.
Talking trash?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I think he can probably take that on, but I don't know what his current travel situation. I know he's on a sabbatical and traveling quite a bit. And
You can just write it on a plane.
yeah.
Right?
Good.
Consultants do it all the time.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to him about that, and then put this into the meeting minutes, and so that should, and then we'll just kind of keep a running table in the unofficial meeting minutes, so that we don't lose track of it again. Just keep that in there whether we talk about it or not, at the meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5B, just an update on the dark sky lighting ordinance.
Yes,
Since last October.
I'll share my screen again here. All right. So I think we're getting pretty close to the finish line. I believe I've got the final meeting scheduled tomorrow with staff to go over hopefully one last time this year with the goal of getting this to council in December, then to the January RCC meeting, and then approved formally at the final or at the second January council meeting would be the goal.
How are we going to make residents aware of this?
So for the most part, I think we'll want to make sure that any developers or people planning future apartments are aware of this, because I think it will affect them more so than residents, because residents are still allowed to do accent lighting, architectural lighting, things of that nature, holiday lighting. But we could write maybe it could be an article. Maybe that could be a February article that I write.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Kind of would make sense.
Yeah. Excellent idea.
So it is a little bit more stripped down. That was kind of the feedback I kept getting, was to keep it more focused on the basics. So I got rid of some definitions that maybe weren't totally necessary, but kept the big ones like curfew and full cutoff, these levels of activity, and really kind of, I think, the really more important ones. Did have a change in this section here. So who does this apply to? All new outdoor lighting fixtures for all new developments, buildings, additions, and structures that require a permit, basically. So we had talked about, you know, if they're redoing 50% or more of their building, then this would come into effect, but it does not look like that's not gonna make the cut. So it's
New construction only then?
it would be new construction only.
Well, that's unfortunate.
And the definition of new construction is greenfield, like no amount of renovation of an existing site is gonna count?
So if they have to get a building permit for an existing site, so it does say addition structures, then they would, but like if they were, you know, just replacing some of their lights and they didn't have to do something that required a permit, then
Okay, but if somebody's doing more than 50%, that's gonna
they're
require
probably
a
getting a
permit.
permit.
Yeah,
Probably.
okay.
So if a building permit is required, then it falls under the dark sky.
Basically, that's the way they wanted to
Alright.
kind of go about that.
I think that makes sense.
It simplifies things on building inspection and zoning a little bit. So that's what we've got there. The exempt lighting list, that's really the same. General requirements was more or less left the same here. So again, talking about full cutoff fixtures, the light source fully shielded, directed downwards and inwards. We do have.
Okay, so this was the section where I had mentioned last month, I would like to see something that says no direct line of sight to the.
No direct line of sight, okay.
To the lighted, to the whatever you wanna call it, the point source of light there.
Okay, sure.
And I didn't know if fully shielded and directed downwards and inwards was supposed to cover that, or if.
I can make that a little bit more clear. I'll just say, you kind of have to say from a certain height off the ground, right? Because if you're on the ground,
Right.
Well, yeah, it would become kind of impossible, but you could say 5 feet off the ground, there can't be a clear line of sight to the luminaire,
light source, yeah.
you know. I'll add that in before meeting tomorrow. We've got the light trespass, so light trespass can't exceed 0.4 foot candles. Just some, no flashing, flickering, and then no lights mounted above the parapet or eaves. So not having big lights on top of your
Spotlights?
roof. I don't have anything about spotlights in here.
You mean like the big ones?
No, they have, yeah, you see them in the sky. I haven't
They
seen those
still
in
use those? I
Fitchburg for a
haven't
long
seen those
time.
for a long time.
Usually they do it like when a business is having a big special, like a car dealership or something.
I don't remember the last time I've seen that, but it's
It's
not.
been a while for me, yeah.
It's a few years, but not like decades.
Oh, no, it's not been decades.
Wow.
Is that something you'd like me to ask about?
That's a major problem right now, if nobody can
Are
remember.
those, you probably need some sort of a permit for that anyway, right?
Yeah.
It'd probably be a special use permit, which we kind of talk about later in here. But that's a good point. I'll bring that up.
Special
at the meeting
permits,
tomorrow. So we did keep the main point of this table here, which basically prescribes the maximum foot candles on the pavement for these different levels of activity. So that was defined again up here. So low activity, employee parking lot, office parks, apartments, then medium activity, where there's going to be a lot of trips, like a grocery store, mixed use, multifamily and retail. And then high activity probably at this point doesn't apply to anything in Fitchburg, but you know, major athletic events.
What if there's something we can do, or during peak migration periods or migration periods of birds in the spring and fall, to eliminate like those big spotlights and things like that that shine up in the sky? Or I guess when you apply for a permit, that there will be some time periods you couldn't use it. Just like in fishing, you can't fish during certain times because fish are spawning or doing things like that, that during these periods of migration, you know, in the spring and the fall, that, you know,
certain types of
we wouldn't
lighting.
allow certain lighting activities to occur.
Sure, no, that makes sense, like the spotlighting or anything that's very disruptive like that. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll see if we can get that worked in. But
I don't know where that would fall under.
Well, if we had a night light ordinance, and if Madison had a better one, we would have been able to see the northern lights, but since we don't, we couldn't.
That's a good thing to put as to why, like in the article. You know, like I think, you know, kind of coming out of the gates, we gotta go pretty high on the, why do we have an ordinance? And so like, most of the article should be kind of along those lines, you know, as an introduction to it as to why we wanna do this. And I think if you tie the northern lights, you know, like that's a.
Yeah, how many times have northern lights been viewed this year?
I mean,
But
a
we
lot,
couldn't see them.
surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Back
good.
in May and October. And just last weekend, they were seen them.
Not here.
That would be a good thing to add in there.
Ben, do you know how many signs do we have that are illuminated from the bottom instead of the top? I feel like those are more common than not.
From the bottom versus the top?
Yeah, like a sign for your business or
Right.
whatever. The lights are mounted at the bottom of the sign shining up instead of the top shining down. Because all of those are gonna be non-compliant, right?
But if it's a low sign, like if it's like this on the ground and it's lit like this, I don't think that's going to affect the sky. It's only if the sign is elevated, right?
Well, I mean, typically they're gonna be, I don't know, 5 feet high at least, right? I mean, because they're meant for viewing by the traffic that's
You mean like a
driving by.
billboard sign?
You know, just one of those big signs that says, you know, it's got the list of all the businesses. So like up on, by Pizza Hut, Changjiang, et cetera, up by Yarmouth Greenway there. You know, there's that sign, it's got a list of all the businesses on there. Chances are, there's some lights at the bottom shining upwards so that you can read the sign.
Oh, I don't remember that sign.
Or sure, and even like, you know, some neighborhoods, they might have a neighborhood
Oh, yeah.
sign. And,
Islands of Seminole,
Sure.
and the lights are at the bottom instead of the top.
But those signs are, those are down. Those
Yeah,
are like
it's
this.
probably not a huge impact, just it's probably pretty low wattage too, but that is an interesting point.
I mean, any new ones that would have to, in order to comply with this, would have to have the lighting at the top, right? Downwards and inwards.
Yeah, pretty much. But that shouldn't be a big obstacle, hopefully, for folks to comply with.
No,
Or
but
if
it shouldn't be, but it's a change.
No, that's a good point.
I mean, I've seen people who also with lights at the yards directed at their house to light up their house at nighttime.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be seeing those a lot in December.
You know, but without holiday displays, I mean, just
Sure.
every time, any day of the year. So, I don't know, I guess they want to show off their house at nighttime or something, but.
I've seen them too, where they illuminate the trees
Yeah.
instead of the house.
Sure.
Yeah, I know that, you know, in our neighborhood, people were using accent lights because we had a pretty big Halloween display, or a lot of people had different skeletons that they're trying to accent. And the same thing won't happen at Christmas time. I don't know.
Skeletons at Christmas time?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of interest in trying to crack down on people doing the holiday lighting.
I don't think
Ron, I think that would make a nice article. You know, some of these decorative lights that people are using, and maybe they don't realize the ramifications.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about another topic.
Yeah.
Save electricity too.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we at in time here?
We can go through the rest pretty quick. So the lighting plan, as far as what has to be submitted, that really didn't change at all. So we would still want to get the specs on any of their fixtures that they're proposing. We'll want a plot plan so you can see, how many foot candles there are at each area of the site. So that really didn't change at all through our comments. And I think the other pretty important piece of this is the special permit for any of those kind of, like in Edgewood, sports facility or anything that is likely going to have, quite a bit of lighting and doesn't really fall under a typical use. Just a way to, make sure that there's nothing crazy being proposed that's going to have a significant impact.
Plus keeping in mind the fall and spring migration, right?
Yeah. Sure. So, and that's something I'll maybe have to look more into. I don't know if it's, exactly what months those would be, or, is it, I guess I just don't know enough about the migration patterns.
When you gonna revise this?
Tomorrow morning.
Let me look tomorrow morning real quick.
Okay.
I think I saw some guidelines on that. I'll send the sheet over to you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. And then something along those lines could be added in, and then, just kind of this enforcement.
So it says any person found to have, so what happens if it's a business?
It almost should be any business. Realistically, that's more likely who would.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could put both.
I'm just afraid that somebody's gonna, if you leave it as any person, they're gonna say, well, point to the person.
Yeah, I'll get some feedback on that with the team tomorrow. They'll have some insights as how they would like that worded.
What team is this?
It's the development team, so it's you've got a lot of the different department heads. We'll have Deanna from planning and zoning, and Tim from public works, and Chad, our administrator, and Mike, our economic development coordinator, building inspection. So pretty much everyone that needs to be involved will be there. And that kind of is the
I thought the penalty was kind of mild.
But each day is a separate offense.
It can add up if you're writing a ticket every day. That's something I don't think that the city wants to do, but that's kind of how the erosion control thing works too. I mean, if someone has multiple instances of violations, they can get a ticket for each one of those individual violations, and they can keep getting a ticket every day until and it would be kind of the same idea with this. So each individual ticket might only be, $100, but if it's an ongoing issue, it could add up pretty quickly.
Would it be $100 retroactive to whenever they install the lighting, or would it be $100 per day retroactive, or would it be $100 from the day that it's noticed?
I think from the day that it's noticed.
You guys are pushovers.
The max they could be fined is $500
Per day?
Per
instance?
Yes, per
Do
instance.
we need to clarify that there and there? Per
I
incident?
could say that, yeah, per instance.
Clarification.
Per instance would be, I think, the good verbiage to use there.
All right. Thanks, man. This is looking good.
Well,
Long haul.
better see it in January as an item here, so.
Pop the cork.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, is there a bottle of champagne at the January meeting?
Yeah.
Well, we could go out for we haven't done it for a long time, but, go out for a drink over at the Tom McCoy, celebrate this ordinance being.
Finally,
Yeah.
sticking to it.
Sticking to it, yeah.
Anything else? Let's move on. We're just 8 minutes behind, 7 minutes behind.
Good job, Ron.
Keep it going. Item 6, council update, Bill?
Yeah, nothing extraordinary, just keep you updated on the ongoing developments. Hartung Fields over here on the southeast corner of Lacey and Syene, they're continuing there. Up the road on Syene, right where there's like an armpit there of a road and Syene, that there's gonna be an apartment building going up there, 120 some units, I think. And that is strictly housing, not mixed use. Jamestown Quarry is progressing, so that's gonna be, that's a fairly large site. And one of the things there is gonna be that 4-story.
Where's this at?
Like across the street from Target on the north side of McKee. Which is, that housing is gonna go in there and then I think that Verona has a neighboring plot of land for a school there, which will be pretty nice that the kids will be able to walk to school.
So is that quarry going away then?
So this is all gonna be like Fitchburg Road goes north across PD and then it hooks off to the east. And so everything on the southeast of that is still quarry, and I'm not sure what the timeline is there.
Okay.
I guess one question I have, I guess a lot of things are coming through the planning commission, getting approved, right, the site development. How come we don't see these things? I mean, I take it like just recently a 385 apartment complex is being planned for sub-zero pond area.
That's on my list here.
Okay, and it's
377.
how we don't get a chance to comment on those things?
I haven't even seen that.
What's that?
I don't think I've seen that.
I listened to the meeting last week, and everybody except one person voted for it.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, why aren't we seeding, there potentially could be environmental impact from that going in.
Yes.
At that site because it's sub-zero pond over there. But no one's bringing that in front of us to look at. I mean, you also have the sports complex on the other side of the road, 385 apartment complex on the other side being proposed. That's just gonna be a big, huge area with a lot of traffic, a lot of things, stormwater issues, other potentially environmental issues, and we're not seeing it.
So are you saying you haven't been looped in on any of this yet? Okay.
I know about the pickleball.
You guys seen it?
Okay.
No, I think one of the reasons that we moved, we used to be, what was it, the third Monday of the month?
Yeah.
And we weren't seeing things, and so one of the things that we, had made an adjustment to, I think a few years ago, coming like right out of COVID, was can we move more up to the second meeting so that, because there was a conflict with like,
It would be delayed. It would delay things.
It would delay things if, with our third meeting of the month. So we moved to the second meeting so that, if there are these developments where there could be environmental issues, in the game, that, we could refer these and not delay those, because we don't want to delay anything. We just want to be able to provide some input on these types of developments that, could have some environmental impacts.
They did at one time come here.
Yeah.
And then it stopped. I'm trying to remember who the council person, I don't know if that was Steve Arnold or Tony Hartman, but when Gabriella became our alder, we haven't seen them since. And we talked to her about that, but we still haven't seen any.
Well, when did we make the adjustment to the second meeting of the month? That doesn't seem like
that was with Gabriella, and she said that, if it had been referred to RCC because we don't meet until the third Monday, it's too late, but it would delay council action by a month, and so we moved the meeting, as Chris said, we moved it to the second Monday so that we could start being included, and we're still not being included.
Interesting. I will bring that up tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, also, all these buildings going up, we don't have the city services to support people. I mean, the referendum didn't go through, so how are we going to support all these additional complexes being built?
There should be more tax revenue.
They generate tax revenue.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Be better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I guess the other two that I was gonna mention are the one at Lacey and Seminole there.
Yeah.
That little wedge where the current
That old barn is there?
That old barn is there, yeah, that's gonna, so that'll be the pickleball courts on the north, and then, I don't know, 4 or 5 buildings that amount to 377 housing units there. But, you know, it's a relatively small area there, and it's, you know, high density is the least impactful on environmental issues. If you build 377 single family homes, then you gotta build miles of road and water and sewer and everything, and it's so compact, high density development is, you know, that's the smart way to grow environmentally. The only other one on the list here is the YMCA, that facility that's being planned just on the north side of McKee Road, right where the Badger State Trail runs up on one side and then Spoke Drive on the other. So we'll see where, I think that's still in early stages there, but.
Do you say YM or YW?
YMCA. The first incarnation that the council saw, they had like a 300 stall parking lot there, which isn't great. And I had hoped that the referendum would pass, and then the 75 route would go past there all day, and people wouldn't feel the need to have that much parking. TTC has also created some revised parking guidelines, because I think we don't actually have anything in our ordinances right now for parking, but developers have been reading our guidelines and following what's in there, I guess for fear of, you know, not getting their stuff through the plan commission. And so there's plenty of examples where, like, I mean, the YMCA, they arrived at 300 spots. They were talking about a 90,000 square foot facility. And if you read the guidelines, it says 1 spot for every 300 square feet of office space. So that's likely how they landed on 300.
It's not really office space.
It's not, but that's probably how they landed on 300 spaces. So I guess we can look for an update to our parking guidelines hopefully within the next months or a year. It may come with the update, the major update to the comprehensive plan, or it may just be a separate thing that gets pushed through. We'll find out. That's the end of my update.
All right, thanks, Bill. All right, let's move on to agenda item 7, staff and commissioner update. And on solid waste.
All right, we got the 2025 solid waste collection calendar finalized. We'll get that posted online shortly. Some copies down here. Did not get exactly what we wanted for the yard waste leaf pickup. I know we wanted one later, but we were not able to get that slot this year.
We're not gonna have 3?
There will be 3.
Just not.
The last one won't be like last week of November or first week of December this time around. We've got a note in for next year. We'll kind of monitor how it goes and then probably try to get one of those 3 leaf pickups in the fall to be later.
Will you be publishing this in the Star?
I would like to, yes, but and this was the next item here. We also will be sending out a mailing to basically every resident that receives curbside collection, just to inform people of the changes with the unlimited recycling and then the third yard waste. So in that mailing, they will also get a copy of the calendar.
Well, then you don't need to put it in the Star.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world, yeah, if it doesn't make it, and hopefully everyone just will open their mail and get it that way.
Ben, what happened with the recycling cart switch? Is the city going to absorb that for?
They're not.
Okay.
Do you know what the Pelteri's billing? I don't know what it was like before, but I just got our bill for the next quarter, and they don't put an envelope in to put your bill in. You have to provide an envelope for that.
I don't get a bill from Pelletary.
I did.
For what?
For the garbage.
Oh, because you have a bigger size?
I guess so, I don't know. I just didn't pay it, but it's like, why didn't they give me an envelope to put my?
Normally it's just
a
on
95 gallon garbage cart?
I think so, yeah, the big green one.
Well, you can downsize.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but the big one, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we don't fill it up, but it's what we have, yeah.
But you can change your card out.
Yeah.
And you don't get charged because we don't.
Oh,
I have a
okay.
65-gallon card, I don't get charged.
Yeah.
Our neighbors, a 5-person family, and they have a 35-gallon garbage card. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just
Yeah.
thought, well, we've been doing it since we moved into the house.
Well, you
so-
probably inherited it from
Yeah.
the people that lived there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can switch it out and then you don't get charged.
Oh, so it's for that little smaller one then?
Well, it's
You can
not
get-
that small.
We can get, what is it, 95, 65, and
35.
35?
Yeah.
Oh, then we don't have the 95 then.
You must, because isn't this, what is the standard size?
I mean, it's the same size as the.
35.
It's
Same size
35.
as a
Yeah.
recycling.
Really?
If you have a 65,
Oh,
you should be
that's a 65.
You
then.
should
It's the
be
same size as a
paying
recycling bin.
Well, then you shouldn't
an
be.
additional annual
What's
fee.
that?
If you're not,
But it's the same size as
It's a
a
pelletary.
recycling bin.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a size up from.
That's a 65.
yeah. So that's why there's
I'm
the
getting
fee.
billed for that.
What do you have? Do you have a 30?
We have the small, we don't get billed, we have the small one, whatever that size
I have a
is.
65 and I don't get billed, so now I'm confused.
No, I've got a 35 and it's
Yeah, you should.
what I
We have-
pay on the property tax bill.
We have the size that the city made, and I thought that was the middle size. And then people could get a smaller size if they wanted, or a bigger size. So,
For recycling, yes,
No,
the
I-
standard
okay.
size is 65, so you can go
'Cause it's
bigger
every
or
other week.
smaller. Yeah, but for recycling, it's
For
or sorry,
regular
for trash, it's 35.
yours must be 35, it looks, I'll have to go
It's
look at ours
small.
Is it
again.
smaller than your recycling?
But only slightly in
No, they're the
appearance.
same size. Our
Yeah, that's what mine is, yeah.
trash and recycling, I'm
Don't
pretty
say
sure they're
anything,
both.
don't say that in public.
Yeah.
Well, I already did.
Why do you generate so much trash?
What?
Why do you generate so much
Well, I
trash?
think
Well, I
down to
don't
the
generate that
35
much
then.
trash.
And there's no
And there's no
cost.
charge, okay,
I
good,
mean, except what you pay with your property taxes.
Yeah. okay, oh, good. Yeah,
Okay, well.
learned something. All right, sorry about it.
Me too.
That's all I got for solid waste.
Okay.
Can I ask you a couple questions on solid waste?
Yes.
I listened to the meeting from October, and I was sorry to miss that because I like that topic, but I know that you're going to do a study on, or think about doing a study on a new street sweeper versus continuing to build retention ponds to keep the, to address the.
Oh,
leaks.
right, if there's a third, if it's more economical just to buy a third sweeper than
Yeah.
trying to build more ponds and stuff.
I was in either Prairie du Sac or Sauk Prairie. I don't know where the divider is for those cities. And they have, there's one person operating it, and it was like a vacuum suction thing going along the curb of the streets to get the leaves out. Now, and I know that there's another community, at least another one in Wisconsin, that uses the same sort of deal. So it's not like somebody gets out and does that. I'm just wondering if that would be less expensive than getting a street sweeper?
Was it, was it on a trailer that someone was pulling, or?
It was part of this truck. It was
Okay.
like
Yeah,
this
I've
big
seen 'em.
hose came out and had a
But
black.
the person in the truck was operating the hose?
Not that I could see. They were just driving along and the hose was against the curb and it was just being pulled along.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them have it where there's like a person in the back moving the hose along.
I didn't see anybody
There's
back
several
there.
types, yeah.
Yeah, there's ones like where you need two people, the driver and hose operator.
Yeah.
I think now they have ones where you can drive and operate, so it just takes one person.
That might be what I saw. Anyway, I thought, well, maybe that would be less expensive because if the purpose is to keep the leaves out of the gutter, then maybe we can use that when we need to, instead of a third street sweeper. I don't know, just thought I'd
Yeah,
throw that
I'll
out.
have to look into that.
And then, slightly different topic, were you able to order another idling reduction sign?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so the ones out in front of City Hall were replaced earlier this year. So those two are brand new, and then we've got some extras now at
Good.
the shop.
Good, thanks.
All right, can I move to stormwater here? Any other questions? All right, so for stormwater, we're
putting together our plans and specs for 2025 stormwater facility maintenance projects. So far, we've got dredging and kind of reshaping Quarry Hill Pond a little bit just to maximize the permanent pool area. And then we'll be making some repairs to the Techlands infiltration basin. This is just north of Nobel. And then we'll probably have a third one as kind of a mandatory alternate for contractors to bid on. So, you know, depending on what the prices are, we could possibly add a third basin in here for maintenance as well. So we're still continuing to work on the Crescent Road Stormwater Improvement Project and the Fitchburg Road Stormwater Improvement Project. The Crescent Road Stormwater Improvement Project is like 99% designed. Right now we're just working through some things with the EPA grant coordinator. So this is a project that the city's going to be using an EPA community grant for. This was the congressionally directed spending. The city got $800,000 for, so we'll be using those dollars for this Crescent project. The Fitchburg Road Goose Lake project is still in the design phase. Still looking at some model updates. Did get some transducers, or basically water level monitoring devices ordered, and then a kind of a smart rain gauge. So we'll get those set up in the spring so we can monitor some groundwater elevations and see how the rainfall affects those. Also participate in the Badger Mill Creek stakeholder group and green tier meeting. So we had our kind of our annual walkthrough of different sites, different construction sites in Dane County with the green tier group. So we got to see, you know, how different places are handling erosion control. And we also hosted a SaltWise training at the Fitchburg maintenance facility. So pretty much all the public works employees were there, as well as public works employees from several different municipalities. We had Wanakee and Whitewater, so all over.
You had local news coverage on that too.
There was some local news coverage. Yep. So that was all the credit goes to Allison Madison. She's the SaltWise coordinator. So she was able to kind of get that all set up and coordinated.
That's a nice thing to be coming out of Fitchburg, you know. We're able to be, you know, kind of one of the area leaders and, you know, guide other communities to do the right thing. You know, that's a nice place to be. You know, I know that we had a big event out here a long time ago when we did the geothermal for the library. We had all the other municipalities come in from around the area. I mean, we had, I don't know, probably 15 different municipalities represented to come out here and check that out.
That's very cool.
So whenever we get the chance to do that, encourage you to keep doing that, because that's, you know, that's great to kind of spread the word about, you know, how we're trying to lead some of those efforts.
Yeah, it was a good event, great turnout. Yeah, hopefully we'll have another one in a couple of years at Fitchburg again.
Excellent.
That's all I got.
Okay, just to follow up from last, we had an action item that, you know, I sent you an email along with Gabriella on this, the TMDL modeling about presenting that to committee of a whole. I don't know if you followed up with Gabrielle on that or as part of our action items. I sent an email to Gabrielle and Ben.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to get that scheduled for next year,
Okay.
along with the sustainability plan as well. So,
Yeah, I haven't followed up with Gabriella.
okay.
I'll see her tomorrow night. Make a
That
little.
sounds good. Yeah, that'd be a good one to.
So just get it on the calendar so that we can talk through those couple different things. I don't know, when exactly, I mean, we can find out right now from Phil. It's time for the sustainability update.
Next one, yep, it leads into Phil.
We're finalizing the sustainability plan.
All right, Phil, you're up next. say update on
All right.
sustainability?
Yeah, I got a few updates here. So with what's in the packet, the first item was about a low carbon transportation materials grant. That ended up falling through. We heard from the Greater Madison MPO last week that because the state DOT is also applying for a low carbon transportation materials grant from the US DOT, they didn't want to duplicate those efforts and risk having two different sets of standards created within the state. So that can pretty much be X'd out. Contract is almost done for the starting of the bicycle and pedestrian plan update. That'll be voted on tomorrow by council. We've had it through the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission, and then tomorrow Finance Committee will review it. Don't expect any hurdles there, but then we're going to kick off updating the bicycle and pedestrian plan in earnest. We've had a couple of internal meetings, but not gotten a chance yet to start really working with the contractor. Solar inverters have been going well, and we've started having an issue again with another one now. So waiting for an update from Arch Electric on that. They came out on Thursday to analyze it. I have not heard an update yet, but should hear later this week, hopefully. Hoping it's just kind of an unplug it and plug it back in. I don't really want to go back into buying replacement inverters again. We have 3 electric vehicles. We've talked about that. Or we've ordered 3. We have 2 EV Lightnings from earlier this year, late last year. Council approved the purchase of 2 Mustang Mach-E's and a Hyundai Ioniq 6. And those are for police administration, building inspection, building maintenance. We're also looking at Public Works is looking at 4 new EV Lightnings as well. So that'll bring us up to 6 of those EV Lightning trucks by sometime early next year. And at least as of right now. So I'll just say here, kind of tying this all into the sustainability plan update. I have been spending a lot of time in the last month and a half on prepping the bike and pedestrian plan update and doing some research for EV charging and possibly putting out an RFP to get some EV chargers installed. The bike and ped plan's about to kick off. The RFP we're kind of going to table because Ford does offer a complimentary charger program for governments when they purchase Ford EVs. So for the time being, we're going to take advantage of that and get those chargers from Ford, not do the RFP, but that is where I've been spending a lot of my time. The sustainability plan, I still need to meet with department heads and talk through implementation. Chad prefers that we have a full internal implementation plan put together before we get it back to council for a final vote. My hope was to get that done by the end of this year. I don't think that's realistic right now. So January, February next year is the goal, and it kind of depends on how quickly we can get all that going and just kind of carve time out to work on it.
Wasn't there a?
And then I know MedDrop was brought up.
Oh, just real quick, was there amended on the budget having 7 EV trucks being bought? I read Ford Lightnings.
I think
That would be great.
just what Phil had mentioned.
Okay.
So yeah, tomorrow I did read it in the packet for the finance committee meeting is the approval of 4 of them. So that'll, like you said, that'll bring us up to 6 total.
Okay.
Plus the 3 others.
So yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
If you saw 7, that might have been a reference just to 7 EVs being voted on by council in the later months of this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the three from last month, and then these 4 Lightnings. And then regarding MedDrop, chatted with Alder Wheeler last month when he was hanging out over in City Hall. He works for Safer Communities of Madison or of Dane County, and I got the impression that they may be able to help us with MedDrop at our e-recycling and shred event. So I've messaged Jim. I haven't heard anything back from him, so I'm going to follow up. But the hope is that Safer Communities might be able to provide that service for us at future shred and recycling events. I don't have an answer yet. Hope to have good news by the next RCC meeting.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's everything I've got.
All right.
Phil, that inverter that is, well, we don't know if it's the inverter, but the panel that's not working, is it the same company?
It is the same, yes. It's one of the Huawei inverters on the West Fire Station this time. So we had some issues with those that they weren't behaving properly, and Arch was able to just come and kind of make some adjustments. And I think there was just some wiring that needed to be replaced, fixed. In this case, I'm just not sure what the issue is. I have not heard back from the tech. I was told he was out Thursday, and I just don't have an update.
Okay.
But it is one of the Huawei inverters.
Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, Phil.
Yep.
Okay, let's see, item 7D, activities being conducted and monitored by commissioners. One thing I'd like to add is that Ben's part of the steering committee for the Lake Wabisa Association Lake Management Plan that's being put together by CARPC. And they've done a great job. It's gone to DNR for review, and it looks pretty positive. Arthur gave some good signs in his email today. I don't know if you saw that. So I really appreciate the efforts that Ben and the city have done to help contribute their part to that part of the process.
Good.
Because Fitchburg does fall into the Lake Wabisa watershed, so that's really good.
Yeah, they've got a real nice plan, I think.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's one of the first lake management plans for the 5 lakes in the metro area, which is unbelievable.
So it's not adopted yet?
It'll be submitted to DNR at the end of the year.
Then maybe somebody could share it with us?
Yeah,
that'd be
more
a
than
great
happy to,
topic.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and out of that, there'll be some implementation plan to talk about projects that could be done in the watershed and how they will move forward to get funding to do those projects, so. Yeah.
So Phil and I attended the Sustain Dane Sustainability Summit on Friday in Madison, so it's down at the Monona Terrace. So there's about 300 local sustainability experts that were at the event. I would encourage anybody from RCC to attend in the future. There's just a lot of good topics. It's pretty inspiring, for all the work that we do along the lines of sustainability. The cost to go to the event is very minimal. And so, it might be something, where other commissioners consider going to it, because I think, you can feel inspired and you can meet some new people and get some fresh ideas, on things. One of the things that was highlighted at that event that I'll mention is that Promega was highlighted for their plastic wrap recycling that they've been doing. That's all going to tracks, kind of the same program that we're doing it, with Sean Path through. So that was highlighted at that event, how they've really attacked that problem and identified all the plastic wrap that they have as a business, and and now we're getting that recycled.
Speaking of that, are we doing anything to promote that collection, that we've got?
Yeah, so there was a little news story FACTv did and was posted on the website. There's also a news story. And Kim, you'll have to maybe help me out. I don't recall which station she was with.
So the contact that I had made earlier on the Plastic Free July, Michelle Renee, came out and did news coverage, or we met at Pick and Save, and she got some footage there, and then we met at City Hall and got some footage there. It was Sean, a Lions Club member, Ben, and myself, and so I can send it around. So it aired on Channel 3000 October 21st, and then it was also on their website, and then Pick and Save and Next Tracks also sent it around to their websites and promoting it as well. So I'll send that around so you guys can see it.
It's on Pick and Save's website?
Pick and Save said that they were going to promote it and put it on their website, and same with Next Tracks. So I haven't checked to see if it's on there, but I'll forward the link so you guys can all see it.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? If not, we can adjourn the RCC meeting at 8:59.
How do you like that?
Yeah.